Well, hi and welcome back to my YouTube channel again. Today I want to talk about one of my favourite cameras. It's a 35mm rangefinder camera, and it's the first real camera that I ever bought for myself when I started getting into photography in the 1970s. Prior to that, I'd learnt a little bit about photography using my dad's old Kodak Retina 35mm camera with a folding and a lens on it, and that was a beautiful little camera, and I still have it and it still works. However, when I decided to get a bit more serious about photography, I got hold of this little camera here. I went into a camera shop and they recommended this one here, which is the Yashica Minister D, and it's a beautiful little chunky solid metal, weighs quite nicely, fits nicely in the hand, rangefinder camera. You can focus here. You've got a split image yellow little bit, so I've got, at the moment I can see two pictures over there on the screen on my phone. If I go back here, now I'm in focus. I can focus on that by moving that and then bring the two images together and I'm in focus. So that's the focusing ring is on the back there. You can see that moving around. Okay, so it's also, and it's a rangefinder to help you with your focusing. That's how basically how it's where that's what a rangefinder is called. Brings those two images together. You've got an image here and an image there, and it brings the two together. However, what are the other reasons why I like this camera so much? It taught me so much because it's got a light meter built into it. At the moment I've got a film in here and I haven't got a battery in it, so I can't show you how the light meter exactly functions, but I can explain it to you. On the back here there's a little red button, and when you press that, that actually activates the light meter. This is the light meter cell just up here, so it's activating that. When you press that little button at the back there, it activates the light meter. And what that does, on the front here, there are these, you can see on the ring there, in the back there, you might be able to see this, as I move that around, the ring closest to the front of the lens is got red coloured numbers on it. And they range from, what do they range from? Around here, 2 up to 17. So the idea is when you press the button back here, this button back here, up in the top here, you can see just here is where the I don't know whether I'm not, that doesn't show my finger in there, does it? Anyway, you can see up on there, just below this dial here, or above that dial there is a scale there, and that's got the same numbers on there that you've got on the front of the on the front there where you change it. And this is, so that's how you set your light reading. So if it says up here, for instance, that you are on, let's have a look and see what we can get here. Say for instance you took a light reader meeting by pressing the button, and then it will give you a value here of 12. So if I then set the, it'll give you a value up here of 12, and then that means that I set the ring at the front to 12. So the first thing to do is you take your reading here, you look on here to see what number it's given you, and they're alternatively in red and white numbers, so you can read them easily. And there's a little needle moves across here. The little needle moves across there. You can't see it at the moment because I haven't got a battery in it. But that, the first thing to do, you point it at the subject, press the button, the needle moves across here, you select the number. In this case, if it came to 12, which is what I've set it on now, it gives me a reading on here of 125 at f5.6. Now the good thing about this camera and why I found it so good to use as a learning experience is that as you move this ring around, it shows you what the different it shows you what the different apertures will be. So for instance, if I'm on 12 at the moment, and that gives me, I'll move this back here, and so that gave me 25, 125th at f5.6. If the reading had come up with, or I can shift that, and then I can easily get the same things there. So at 12, f8 at a 60th of a second is correct exposure, and also if I go there, f11 at a 30th of a second is the correct exposure. So this moves around, and you can actually work out what the different correct exposures are. So because you know that aperture gives you good depth of field, you can choose your aperture or your shutter speed and work out the look you're looking for. One of my favourite photography teachers, who you'll find on the internet and on his books, Bryan Peterson, who wrote the book called Understanding Exposure, he points out that there is no such thing as one correct exposure, but there are, depending on how many f-stops you have. On this camera we've got, how many? We've only got about we've got about 3 major f-stops on this camera. No, we haven't. I'm telling you wrong. We've got 2.8, f2.8, f4, f5.6, f8, f11 and f16. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 f-stops. So if you've got 6 f-stops, by changing the shutter speeds and changing the apertures, you can have up to 6 correct exposures, correct creative exposures. In other words, if you want to have freeze the movement, you change the ratio so that your shutter speed is faster. But if you want to have shallow depth of field, you change the aperture so that it's, in this case it would be f2.8 to give you shallow depth of field. And correspondingly, if you wanted to have better depth of field in it, well, then you would change it to f16, and you'd move this ring to get the corresponding shutter speed to give you the best depth of field. And I'm getting a bit lost here, aren't I? So you use this. In other words, what I'm trying to say is that this is a very good beginner's camera. It helps you to learn the coupling between the correct exposure as per your creativity. In other words, depending on whether you're looking to freeze the movement or have shallow depth of field, or you want to open up the aperture so you can let more light in, that's how you do it. So I learnt the basics of how those apertures and shutter speeds react together. And of course this all depends on the ISO. So before you do anything on a camera like this, of course, you set this used to be the ASA in the old days. You can see just up there it says ASA, but it's ISO these days, but that's set on 400. I've got a 400 ISO film in this camera at the moment. So before you do anything with these cameras, you set the correct ISO for the camera, for the film that you've got in it. And then you can use these dials to work out what your shutter speed and your aperture should be to get the correct creative exposure that you want. I'll see if I can find a link to Bryan Peterson's correct creative exposure on YouTube for you to have a look at and see what I'm talking about. But that's why this is a great little camera. It's only got one fixed lens. It's an f2.8 is the maximum aperture, and it's a Yashica lens, and they're really very good lenses, very nice and sharp, and you'll get good photos with this camera. So it's a fixed lens. You can't take it off and shift it, but it's basically just less than a 50 millimeter lens, and nice and compact. In fact, at one stage when I moved up into a Penatx Spotmatic, I actually sold this camera to a friend, and then later on, when he wasn't using it anymore, I bought it back from him. And now I've actually got 2 of these now, and so they're a very good camera to learn on. So there you are. It's a Yashica Minister D, and I'd recommend it if you can get hold of these quite cheaply. As I say, I've got 2 of them now. Found one recently. I think it was given to me. So there you go. It's a very good camera. and you can find instructions on the internet for them. I've got an instruction manual here. If anyone ever wants a copy, I can send you a PDF of the instruction manual. Also the batteries, I looked up, I've got up on my screen here, the battery that you need to put in it, I looked up, is an Li560 or an A76 battery plus an adapter to put in this little battery compartment down the bottom here. Of course, it's got the usual rewind button to press back here, and you just manually rewind the film back afterwards. So that's the Yashica Minister D. So I hope I haven't been too confusing with that, but look it up, see if you can get hold of one if you're learning photography. Next time I'm going to talk about a digital camera, which I think is which is a Canon 400D, which I think is a great learning camera as well, and still takes a good photo at 10 megapixels, but was the first Canon Digital SLR that I bought. So I'll be talking about that in the next camera video, depending on what else I put in between that and this video. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and that's the Yashica Minister D, and Yashica always made good cameras. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.